The 6-11 matchup in the Midwest brings us 6 seed Illinois, 11 seed play-in game here. Xavier Musketeers and the Texas Longhorns. Xavier, I'm actually surprised, as we've talked about, surprised they even got in here. I wouldn't have been surprised if they were like in the next 4 out. They just didn't really have the resume, but nonetheless, here they are against Texas. And quite honestly, like regardless of who advances in that first 4 game, I think that it's a pretty good matchup now with Morez Johnson back for Illinois. I think both of those teams they struggle a little bit on the glass, right? As we've talked about with Texas in particular all year long, right? They don't really have a great presence like Caden Shedrick, Zarek Onyema. Those are really their 2 guys up front. Jason Kent's played a little bit more recently, and he's been all right, particularly on the offensive glass, but not really a big threat there. Whereas like Morez Johnson is just an animal on the offensive glass. I think either team, Xavier and Texas, would struggle a little bit with him. And I think it would just take a Illinois poor shooting night, which they've been very susceptible to, right? As we've seen, they're like top 10, I think, in 3-pointers attempted, but in the bottom 40 in the country in 3-point field goal percentage. So they're no stranger to cold shooting nights. But then again, they have the advantage, I think, up front against both teams to get all over the offensive glass and clean those things up.
Yeah, they definitely have advantages in that area. They should control the glass against either opponent here, both with smaller front lines like Xavier playing Fremantle at the 5, Texas playing Shedrick at the 5, like you said. And I know everyone's saying that Illinois is due for 3-point regression at some point. I don't really think they can be at this point. They haven't shot it well really all year long, and they take a lot of guarded threes, which leads to, less likely that you're going to have positive 3-point regression. They don't really generate any great looks from the perimeter, and Texas and Xavier do a pretty nice job of guarding the 3 at a high level. So I think there are paths for either Texas or Xavier. I'll use Texas for the sake of the argument. I do think they end up beating Xavier. They're not fraudulent, obviously. They're on a nice run, but against fairly poor competition. They have a win over Creighton by 20 in within their last 5 games. But besides that, they've been kind of beating up on the bottom of the Big East. So I'll say Texas wins that game. I think they're playing much better as of late. They played pretty well in the SEC tournament overall. And I think their offense has advantages against Illinois. Illinois' drop coverage, they're going to play that exclusively. They're never going to change their pick and roll coverage. And I think that's advantage Texas. They love to live in the mid-range anyway. They love to live off of their dribble pull-up game. Trey Johnson, one of the best dribble shot creators in the entire country. Jordan Pope, another one of those guys. He's probably a top 20 to 25 shot creator off the bounce. Even Teron Mark. These guys are kind of built to live in the mid-range off the bounce. So if Illinois is going to play drop coverage, try to defend the 3-point line, take away 3-point attempts at all costs, Texas doesn't really do that anyway. They want to live in the mid-range. If you're going to give them open looks in the mid-range, they're probably going to knock them down pretty much all day. Like we saw, I kind of compare it to the matchup that they had with Michigan State at home, where Michigan State doesn't shoot the 3 anyway. They want to shoot in the mid-range, and they ended up cooking Illinois on the road, and they beat them by double digits. I can kind of see Texas doing the same thing here. They can have a ton of offensive efficiency. Obviously, the concerns on the defensive end, on the glass, but I actually think they can defend the 3 well enough with Illinois trying to attempt 1 million threes a game off the bounce. And I think they have enough length on the perimeter, enough athleticism on the perimeter to guard them. So, I came onto this actually thinking I was going to take Illinois, but I may have actually talked myself into taking Texas in an upset pick. I think it's more of a toss-up. I think a lot of people think Illinois is kind of going to roll into the second round just because people haven't been all that high on Texas or Xavier all year. But if Texas gets by, I like their matchup more than Xavier because Xavier kind of lives out of the spot-up game a little bit more often. But for the sake of this, I'll take Texas beating Xavier, and I'll take Texas to beat Illinois and move on to probably play Kentucky.
Yeah, I think Illinois definitely wants to see Xavier more than Texas, especially with the way Texas has been playing. Tremont Mark has actually been playing good basketball. I think they've actually been getting what they expected to get out of him all year as of late. He's been playing with the ball in his hands a lot, getting to the rim at will, getting to the free throw line a bunch. So if Texas can get by Xavier, which, I would like to think they will. I'm not very high on Xavier, as I've said, but you never know. These first 4 games can be interesting. So, I think if Texas wins, I do kind of like them in an upset pick over Illinois. If Xavier wins, I think Illinois is able to handle them fairly easily and move on to the second round. So I think it's all dependent on that first 4 game.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And at the end of the day, I could see Texas just not having a good shooting day and getting crushed on the glass in that first round matchup, and they end up losing by 10 to 15. But I do trust their mid-range shot making ability to have a lot of success in that game. And Illinois' drop coverage is just like, you know what you're getting. So like it's not really a hard prep. Like you can kind of just live out of the pick and roll game the entire game. You have 3 different options to do that. So I do really think Texas has legs to potentially make it to the second round.
Yeah, for sure. So depending on who Illinois gets, should be a fun first round matchup in the round of 64. But we'll have to wait and see what happens in the first 4. Either way, whoever moves on should be seeing Kentucky in the round of 32.